actually, I don't know how many of you know any soldiers overseas, but from what my mom told me is she just really was so eaten up by fear half the time, and she would be glued to the TV. My father wouldn't watch it all. It was the same for a lot of wives and children of other soldiers and husbands and brothers and sons and everybody, So they would say something though, and I'd be like, where do you get that? And I would start wigging out because I had what's called post-traumatic stress disorder. I would just get so angry. It would be like I'd be really happy 1 minute, and then just at the snap of a finger or like the flash of a newsreel on Fox News, I would like flip because I knew that I felt like I was living in unreality back in the States. I'd see what people were talking about and see what was on the TV, and I'd be like, wait, that didn't happen that way, or that can't be happening that way. Like, I know what's happening. So now after a while, my mom really did, she was like, you're not right anymore. Like, what's wrong? Why are you freaking out? Like, why are you unhappy? And it was 3 people from my unit totally wrecked our cars. I was one of them. It was a lot of, there was one suicide attempt. A lot of people fell into just alcoholism, which a lot of people started out the alcohol abuse in Iraq. It was really, this twisted cycle. So, after a while, now my parents support me in what I do 100% completely, and they're finally at a place where they're open enough to accept other political opinions about what's going on in Iraq. Like, they're not afraid of terrorists anymore, They don't, we're at a point 5 years later where we spent so much money on the war where it's not even worth debating these little things anymore. It's like, what can we really do to fix the problem? And that's a discussion we don't have anymore. Nobody has. So, long story short, my parents support me now. It took a while to get there. And I still continue a conversation with them. And I joined the military out of all the best intentions to do something good for my country, and that's not what I got to do. So.
I couldn't be a teacher. I don't know how to. Who had their hand up first? Jody.
It's an excellent question because I travel a lot inside the US, sometimes more than once a week, but on an average maybe once or twice a month. Wherever I go, whether it's the West Coast or the East Coast or the South or Midwest, wherever I go, I get exactly the same questions, exactly the same misinformation, and it's amazing. Because I've never seen a place before that is that controlled information-wise. And some people say, how can you say that? Iraq had one state-owned media. Was that better than CNN and Fox News? And they say no, it's true. Iraq and Iran and Saudi Arabia, they do have very limited state-owned media, and these are the things that you are allowed to listen to. But people know that they are lies. No one says, I listened to this on TV in Iraq. In fact, people always think that things on TV are exactly the opposite from reality. So, and there are many other options for information. Like people listen to information from Europe, from Asia, from, like so many different radio stations. People search for information. But in the US, the level of control over the mainstream news is amazing. Because you have, it's true, like you see 50 different channels. But they repeat the same thing. And like, it's true that there are different, Congress members. There are like, 450 of them. but they repeat the same thing. There are variations of the same thing, you know? Some of them want to continue the occupation in a harsh way, others want to have a nice occupation, you know, like. But I mean, it's the same, you know, like the same variations. Like one of the things that I always repeat is that I feel my blood pressure gets, you know, abnormal when I'm listening to the congressional debates, because one party says we have to contain Iran through bombing them, and then the other party says no, we have to contain Iran through diplomatic means. No one asks, who are we to contain Iran? You know, like, why don't we contain ourselves first? So the level of information is very limited. I mean, I wanted to say, in fact, something about the question about the depleted uranium. Like, the depleted uranium issue is something that most Iraqis know about, because after the 1991 war, that war had depleted uranium used in it. And there were many governmental sponsored and non-governmental sponsored studies on the effect of depleted uranium in Basra on cancer rates there, how it increased cancer rates in 10 years around 30 times. The average hospital that used to get 2 cancer patients a month started getting 2 cancer patients a day. 30 times, it increased 30 times. And there were some studies, one of them I remember by a doctor called, I remember her, in fact she was at my university, her name is Suad al-Hazzawi, and her PhD, I think, was on, or one of her reports was on how the depleted uranium in Basra actually went to many Iraqis through tomatoes, because tomatoes has you know, some iron or metal, whatever. But so I mean, it is a very discussed issue. I think in the U.S. there is a very much lack of information about it. But there is a very good documentary that I actually helped the documentary makers go to 3 different sites hit by depleted uranium in Baghdad and in the south. I traveled with them with a Geiger counter, and we went to places that were hit with depleted uranium, and we saw the readings of it. And it's really, I mean, I didn't see it in other places. No one actually did this thing with the Geiger counter and saw the readings, and how children were playing inside it, and how Iraqis were given an official paper by the occupation authorities, the CPA at that time, allowing them to cut the tanks that were hit, many of them by depleted uranium, and melt them. So many of these tanks ended up being pots and spoons in people's mouths, you know, they're radioactive. So I mean, the documentary is called, I think something like 21 Days on the Empire's Edge, or something like that. It is, you can find it online. Yeah, but it's very informative. It has so much information about why depleted uranium was used, how the effect of it, and like how many bullets were, for example, the tens of thousands of bullets that went underground, or hit the ground, you know, and then the surface water in Iraq is very close to the ground. So these bullets actually go inside the water. They will contaminate Iraq's surface water for the next millions of years, you know. I mean, some of the things are so amazingly bad that, I mean, you can't grasp. But I mean, I hope that will be, you can find more information on that documentary and book that accompanied.
I'm sorry,